town of the good, the bad, and the weird. You either live by the gun, or you die by the sword.
Welcome to The Good, the Bad, and the Weird. I'm Nico.
And I'm Chris.
And today is a very monumentous day for us.
Yes.
Not only is it our 100th episode,
Woohoo!
full episode, let's say
Yes.
that. We've got a lot more out there. But it's also it's also the episode where we cover the movie that our podcast is named after, The Good, the Bad, the Weird.
We thought it fitting.
Yeah. I mean, it's episode 100. We gotta do something a little special for it.
And this movie is the good, the bad, and the weird.
No, actually, it's the good, the bad, the weird.
This is true.
We're the good, the bad, and the weird.
Yes, but it perfectly encompasses the entirety of everything.
Yeah, it's an interesting movie.
Oh boy, is it.
So, for those not familiar, The Good, the Bad, the Weird is a story about a treasure hunter, a bounty hunter, and a hired man who are all seeking a treasure in 1930s Manchuria.
It is loosely based around the other movie that sounds similar, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
Yes, as well as a handful of other ones I'll go into.
Yes.
So, directed by Kim Ji-woon with screenplay by Kim and Kim Mik-sun. And I do want to say from the beginning that I apologize for messing up any names or any of the naming conventions. I also know that Korean last names are not usually first, and they're one syllable, and they're used before the first name, and I tried my best, but I've seen them go back and forth, and I got a little confused, so...
It is complicated.
Yeah. As well, in general, if we're referring to the solitary name of Kim, we're referring to the director Kim Ji-woon. I learned that Kim is, like, the most popular name in Korea. It's like 20% of the population's last name is Kim.
Good. I'm glad we found Mr. Smith.
Yes. It stars Song Kang-ho, Lee Byung-hun, and Jun Woo-sung. For those unfamiliar with any of these people, as I know, Korean films are becoming more and more popular, especially in the last half decade or so.
Yeah.
Kim Ji-woon wrote and directed the segments of Three Extremes 2, A Tale of Two Sisters, which was remade in the US as The Uninvited, as well as I Saw the Devil and A Bittersweet Life.
Yes.
But most importantly, he wrote and directed this little movie and this was his first movie, called The Quiet Family, which was remade in Japan as The Happiness of the Katakuris, directed by none other than Takashi Miike.
And for those of you playing along with me at home, take a shot.
Yes, which now bonds our podcast to the man with even more closer than we ever thought, other than my love for him.
Hooray!
As for Kim Min-suk, this was his first writing credit, and he's done a little TV work and a couple other features called The Haunters and a TV movie called Monster, but other than that, he still hasn't really done a whole lot since this movie.
Okay.
When it comes to Song Kang-ho,
Uh-huh.
who plays the weird, he's probably the most well-known since he starred in the Oscar-winning movie Parasite.
Uh-huh, yeah, that's where I think most of us are going to know him from.
That, or he's also in Snowpiercer.
Good one.
Memories of Murder, Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance, The Quiet Family.
Yep. And
a film we previously reviewed, The Host.
Yeah, I mean, the guy's gotten through our repertoire, for sure.
Yes. As for Lee Byung-hun, he plays the bad. I know him from I Saw the Devil, but he's also in A Bittersweet Life, Joint Security Area, and he has this part in Squid Games, I guess?
Yes, he does. That's, I think, where Brian at least will recognize him from, and because Brian watched it, I watched it, so...
I'm still on episode 1.
That's okay.
But on the other side of the Pacific, he is in G.I. Joe Retaliation, Red 2, Terminator Genesis, The Magnificent Seven, which, for those unfamiliar, is also a remake of an adaptation of Akira Kurosawa's Seven Samurai.
Yep.
But also interesting that I found out from reading up on him, he's fluent in English, French, and Mandarin.
Wow, that's really impressive.
Yes. And finally, we get to the good, Jung Woo-sung, who I personally am less familiar with of this group. He's more known for drama and action movies such as Steel Rain, Asura, and well as romance dramas as A Moment to Remember.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, not quite in the same circle we normally run with, but I was really impressed with his acting for this movie.
Everyone in this.
Oh, yeah.
But before we dive in, I do want to give credit to our sources, mainly the making of featurettes and interviews with cast and crew on the DVD.
So good.
The Good, the Bad, and the Weird Interviews Part 1, Lee Byung-hoon, by Andrew Heskins of EasternKicks.com, as well as The Good, the Bad, and the Weird Interview Part 2, Kim Ji-woon, by Andrew Heskins of EasternKicks.com, as well as The Good, the Bad, and the Weird Interview with Kim Ji-woon by Virgin Soleil of Electric Sheep.
Yes.
So, a little bit more research than our normal one.
Yeah. Well, partially just because we aren't as familiar with a lot of these people. And there's some really good insight out there for this movie.
Yeah, well, and on top of that, and I've noticed this so far, granted, I haven't really done too much of a deep dive outside of Bong Joon-ho's movies, and there's really not much of a commentary on the stuff that I found for the most part.
Sure.
He's the one who's more talkative than, at least granted, a lot of these are Criterion ones, and...
Yeah, that skews things a little.
Yeah. But before we dive into the movie, a little bit of the background. Kim wanted to create a Korean take on a Western and had a dream of telling a story of men charging out into the desert.
I love it. Yeah, well, why not?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very striking image of... We see it with a lot of our Westerns of...
Oh, yeah, it's classic.
Yeah, riding out into the desert. This was also because he found The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly more interesting than the other American Westerns that were popular, such as High Noon, Rio Bravo, Gunfight at the OK Corral, as he thought they had too many American values rather than just kind of this ambiguous gray area that The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly has in comparison.
Sure, I can see what he means.
And for him, they didn't translate to a young Korean boy. So...
Yeah, I can understand that.
Yeah. But it's definitely a play on the spaghetti western, which, for a little history context, only came about because of Yojimbo, which was also inspired by a 1942 film noir adaptation of a 1931 novel called The Glass Key by Dashiell Hammett.
Yeah, because everything in the Western world is a play off of something else.
And then Kurosawa was also a play off of our westerns, old John Ford ones. So
oh, yeah.
There's a lot of back and forth. But outside of the Western genre influences, Kim was also influenced by the 1971 Korean Western Breaking of the Chain. You can actually find it on YouTube. There's actually a lot of classic Korean movies on YouTube that I wasn't aware of.
Good to know.
Mad Max.
Oh, my favorite.
Ben-Hur.
Yeah.
As well, he was inspired by Blade Runner for the multicultural communities and whatnot for this movie.
Yeah, and honestly, while it's hard to pinpoint exactly where those influences are hard hitting, it is something that you can easily pick out throughout the movie, especially some of the bigger ones like Mad Max, Breaking the Chain. You can see those pretty easy. Yeah,
and granted, I've only seen the first Mad Max, so...
It's okay, but you still get the vibe. There's an underlying bone feeling that runs through this movie, as opposed to a scene specifically.
Yeah. As well, he wanted to make a deeper and not as slow traditional westerns.
Which, I mean, traditional westerns are a lot of dry.
They are. And even The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, while the characters are interesting, they're still relatively thin for characters.
I mean, they're thin enough that my husband can't get through the first 5 minutes.
God.
So
we'll have to plan it so we force him to watch it.
We will trick him into watching it.
To be fair, it is also a 3-hour movie. I did rewatch it last weekend, so...
Yes, it is very long. This movie is also long, though. 2 hours and 10 minutes.
It's longer if you watch the Korean cut.
Well, yeah.
But with this, Kim replaced the ugly with the weird because he said it triggers your imagination and it makes you more excited. And it's just not as what's the term? Off-putting as calling someone ugly?
Yeah, part of the... I wouldn't say charm, but part of the trope of old westerns is being a little bit too blunt.
Yeah.
And so there's always the handsome good guy, the devilishly bad guy, and then everyone else is just kind of fugly.
Yeah. Yeah, kind of. Yeah, that's old westerns. But then he had the thought of Song Kang-ho shooting twin guns that came to his mind, and that was the start of The Good, the Bad, the Weird.
And there's so many iconic poses, gunfights, like scenes that run throughout this movie that you can tell that this was a fan making a movie that he wanted to.
Yeah, exactly. And I do want to put a disclaimer for a little history of our podcast.
Yes.
I don't think either of us had watched this movie before we named the podcast.
We had not.
The Good, the Bad, the Weird. Because I looked it up on my personal side, is that I watched it like 6 months into us having the podcast. We knew the movie existed before we started this.
Yeah, like we knew of the movie, but we hadn't fallen in love with it yet.
Yes, exactly. So, before we dive into the movie, Chris, what are we drinking today?
Well, for a Korean kimchi western, we needed a Korean drink. So, we have Hanjun.
Yeah, it's one of the only 2 Korean spirits we can get here. It's this and Jinro 24.
Yeah, and so we got the lychee flavored one.
Yeah.
Delicious.
So, cheers.
Pretty good.
I like it.
It's good. Very lychee.
Very much. They got multiple flavors, but this is the one I picked.
We will have to have a different flavor next time.
So, the good, the bad, the weird.
Yes.
We open on a treasure map and a man sent to Kanemaru to find the treasure.
You know, honestly, at first I wasn't sure how I felt about the whole treasure map bit. Because it feels weird because the rest of this movie is very Western-y.
Yes.
However, it kind of brought around some, of the, Japanese style movies.
Yeah, like Sukiyaki Western Django,
Yeah.
where there's a treasure to go. And, I mean, we have those in classic Westerns where, there's, the Lone Ranger movie we covered, where there is a treasure out there, but we don't have that cheesy treasure map.
And, this is a full-on cheesy treasure map.
Yes.
And, I don't know, by the end of the movie, I really liked the cheesy treasure map.
I think that's the thing about this movie is, just from the get-go, it is quite different than what you think of a Western.
Yeah, well, and also, it's kind of hard from the get-go to place exactly where and when we are, which is part of the Western genre, is, having a vague idea of, you're kind of in the West.
Yeah.
This movie does a great job of doing that, but not being in American the West.
No, it gives a general region, which I'll go over because there is a historical reason why this region was chosen.
Yeah, but again, that matches with so many other American style Westerns where
there's a state of lawlessness or something.
And also it feels almost like a made up version of Texas or New Mexico where it's oh yeah, we're definitely here, but we're definitely also not.
And it's not like going the far extreme of Sukiyaki Western Django where we're setting it in Nevada, but all the architecture is Japanese with a little bit of Western tang to it.
Yeah, no, this one does a great job of building its own stage to perform on, where everything's very believable, but everything is also suspended in its own little bubble.
Yeah, exactly. So from this introduction, we cut to the next scene where we're introduced to the bad Park Chang-yi,
who the most emo character in this whole movie. I love it. We got the fringe, we wear all black, and we've got the little earrings
and got little scars all over his face.
Oh yeah, no, if middle school me, after playing Kingdom Hearts, had been make a Western bad guy, this is who I would have created.
Yes.
I love him.
And this is, as we said earlier, this is portrayed by Lee Byung-hun. And he's hired to get the map back so that way they can both get paid. So
yeah,
the map's kind of already a little bit of that MacGuffin feeling of you're supposed to get it, but it's not really the thing you're wanting to get.
Yes.
Where we're also told that they'll have a Manchurian soldiers escort him, but he has other plans.
Of
which
course.
Is a great way to set up that he's dangerous from the get-go. He's the best on the continent. I also like where they're talking out their plans, and they're where they plan to stop the train, the music box from the transition stops as well.
Yes.
But it's also a good way of introducing the bad guy without fully saying he's the bad guy.
Yeah, because while we have literally a character labeled the good, everyone is in a gray level of bad.
Yeah, and I think for simplicity, we're going to just refer to them as their stereotypical characters, at least the main trio.
Yeah, just because honestly it does get kind of confusing we have our main trio, but we do have like a running background cast who just kind of show up.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of in and out of characters in this, to say the least.
Yes.
But it's time to go to Manchuria as the credits roll over the sky, a hawk, a train, and the desert.
It is very Western. I love it.
Very much so, which I dig the music because it has like that pacing of the Western, but it's a bit off, and I couldn't tell what exactly was putting it off a little bit. I think it was like more modern instruments or just not exactly the instruments you think of in a Western.
So part of it was, you're right, there's just more instruments in it. Your standard Western music had like 6 instruments, and even then it was like kind of just 3 with like some sound slapped on it.
Yeah, I was thinking like kind of Ghost Rider.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, there's just more going on, which I like how the music kind of follows along with what the movie's doing. There's just more going on. And
it works especially for the long shot and the cool transition of the steam into the train, because like this is, I mean, it's because we haven't really dived into a whole lot, and we're already going through an interesting like credit scene of just a brief introduction to what's happening.
We don't spend a ton of time on this train, but the train is really interesting to look at. So as we're like zooming through and like setting up all of the stuff, the background is incredibly interesting.
It kind of feels a little bit like the Fast and the Furious opening of the train, or of their car robbery, but like we haven't gotten to a robbery just yet.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, just yet, because
we get there real quick, though.
We follow behind some guy selling sweets as we encounter a man protesting for an independent Korea. And so this is one of the underlying themes that's going to ride the movie a little bit.
Yes, it does keep popping back up.
Yes, because for those who don't know, Korea was under Japanese rule from 1910 to 1945, a.k.a. till the end of World War II.
Yep.
As well, for the purposes of setting up the scene, for those unfamiliar, this movie, and not going down that whole rabbit hole, but Japan also occupied Manchuria at this time.
Yes.
And this is why we ever so briefly see a group of Japanese soldiers in the Japanese army later on.
Yeah, it has the same feel to it as like the Spanish-American War.
Yeah.
So like it still feels very Western despite all of this not being Western themed at all.
Yeah, we don't have the super clear distinction of the old Westerns of the Native Americans and the white dudes.
Yes, but we still get the nice like trifecta of like the Native Americans, the white dudes, and then the Mexican.
Yeah, we have the Manchurians, the Koreans, and the Japanese.
Yeah, and so it all still balances out really well.
Yes. And Kim chose this era because he felt it was more suitable for a Western, but he understands why people see the political issues, whether he actually planned them or not.
Yeah, and honestly, that's kind of beneficial to this movie, just because, like, without having this there, we already talked about how this movie is kind of in its own little bubble realm, right? Mm-hmm. This helps ground it into some form of reality without having to, like, really, like, put a real hard pin in anything. And so, like, this helps give a sense of time and place where, yeah, we could have done without it, but boy, this makes everything feel much deeper.
Yeah. Well, and Kim also chose this because you need a place to ride a horse.
That's true.
Yeah.
Because, again, this is a Western, but part of the reason why I think the Mad Max vibes run through real quick is even on the train, it is abundantly clear that this is not a Western train.
No.
Like, the lower class car is just full of stuff, floor to ceiling, crammed with, like, all sorts of belongings.
It feels a little Snowpiercer-esque.
Yes.
Yeah.
And, like, because of that, you're like, okay, I see what's happening, and I'm here, and I'm excited to, like, go on this journey, because I no longer know what's happening.
Yeah. No, and, yeah, that's the thing, because there is so much going on. Again, the little brief thing we see of the man promoting Korean independence.
It happens in like a second.
Yeah. And it's something that's quickly forgotten. There's a lot of things that are easily missed. Like, there's a part where the sweets dealer bumps into the good Park Do Won.
Yes.
Woon. One? I don't know.
And the only reason that you know that was important is because the camera takes a half a second to breathe right there.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, couldn't see that man's face, no idea, but he must be coming back. He must be important.
But at the same time, if you're watching this and not really paying attention, it's just part of the chaos.
And it works so beautifully.
Yes. But after a long following scene, we finally meet the weird Yoon Tae-gu, who is portrayed by Song Kang-ho, who is there to rob the train's fancy car.
God, I love this character so freaking much.
I also love his introduction because he's in the middle of eating his own sweets while doing the robbery.
He's like chewing bubblegum while he's robbing people.
Yeah, and it's also super awkward because the whole thing, he's trying to rob them in Korean.
And they don't speak any Korean?
No, and so he's like, well, you guys don't know Korean, so Chinese?
It's a really good balance, too, between bumbling idiot and, like, clever. Because, like, he's clearly not thought this through well.
No.
But he also isn't completely dumb. Like, he's not completely useless.
No.
And as we see this character progress throughout the movie, you're like, it just adds this level of, like, okay, how much of this dumb is an act, and how much of this is just how you are?
There's a lot to that, too. So
yeah, which is, I love that we set it up real strong from the beginning.
Yeah, he hands down, of the trio, is the main character.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
But
partially because we get the most screen time with him.
Yeah, but he also has, there's an interesting development that I'll go through that I didn't catch the first time watching, that with multiple watches since the first watching.
Yes.
I caught on to. But he's robbing Sir Kanemaru, who's the chief of the Japanese Imperial Bank. And also the scene plays out a lot like the scene from The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, where they're just kind of staring over a bowl of soup, but the only one eating is the weird.
Yes. Okay. While there's not a ton of direct, like, shot for shots from The Good, the Bad, the Weird, I do like that this movie, or The Good, Bad, the Ugly.
Yeah.
I do like that this movie takes a second to acknowledge that what most people remember from that movie is just the staring scenes, and adds both of them in.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, and that's the thing that this movie does, that it cleverly disguises its ties to a lot of these movies.
Yeah, like, if you hadn't seen it, you probably wouldn't notice.
No.
But if you have seen it, especially if you're a fan of them, you're like, wait a second here.
Yeah, that's where I got with rewatching The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, because I've only seen it, that was my second viewing of it, so...
Yeah.
Like, I forgot a fair amount about The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, too.
Understandable. There's a lot.
Yeah. But during this standoff, the train, there's a dude standing before the train with a very cool smoke shot hiding it all.
Gosh, he looks so badass. There's so many badass scenes in this movie in general, and this one starts it all off.
Oh, yeah. Which, I mean, it causes the train to stop, and we get a nice, like, rolling POV action shot of the weird... This is where we first see him as a capable character, because he's shooting down these Japanese guards as he's
falling. Yes.
Yeah.
But he does it in such a way that, like, the first watch through that you watch this movie, you would almost mistake it as him just getting lucky as he falls.
Exactly.
It's very Drunken Master feely.
Yeah. And honestly, it was one of the cool shots to see from behind the scenes, because they just stuck a dude with a camera in it, like, basically a wheel.
Yeah.
And rolled him.
There's a lot of really cool tricks in general to this movie that I like a lot.
Yeah, and I'll get into that in just a wee bit too. But it's time for the train robbery as the train stops and no one is safe.
Yeah, no, seriously. This feels so barbaric, this train robbery.
No.
I kind of like how brutal it is.
Yeah, because this is the first part where we see how bad the bad really is, because he is killing women, and I don't think we see children die, but I'm sure.
But, like, we are just slaughtering everyone that's on the train.
Yeah, slaughtering the conductor, but I also like their, like, use of classic gunplay, but even old school, like, spears and stuff.
Yeah, the spears are what kind of gives you the Mad Max feel, because, like, you're like, okay, we're in a Western, that's pretty easy to vibe out. We've got the guns, we got horses, we got a motorcycle?
Yes.
And then we've got like, they just throw a spear and stab the conductor from a distance. Yeah. And he's just, like, stuck dangling there. And you're like, oh, these aren't just, like, haha spears. Like, you guys are good with them. Okay, alright, I see you.
Exactly. It's the 30s. I'm sure... Actually, I don't know anything about...
Maybe javelin was real popular back then. I don't know.
I have no clue. I don't know.
It
works.
And also, like, it feels more appropriate in a weird way than having, like, bow and arrow. Because that's kind of what they feel like they're replacing. The spears feel like they're replacing Indian-style bow and arrows in these old Western movies. But it would have been weird to have bow and arrow. And so, having the spear, while jarring, you're just kind of accepted after the first person that dies via one.
Yeah, I wonder if it's just something that's so foreign to our concept of a Western that we just accept it.
Yeah, but possibly.
Yeah, I don't know. It's this weird thing that comes... Because there's been a handful of movies that I watched relatively recently. The main one I can think of is the remake of 47 Ronin, which is an entertaining adaptation, but it's this weird thing of, like, misinterpreting and, like, mythicizing that era.
Well, and also the spears kind of add to the Mad Max feel that the motorcycles do.
Yeah.
Where it's almost fantasy. And so, like, even if they are pulling from, like, a historical context here, for those of us not familiar with it, it at least adds this level of, like, to the bubbleness of it, where it's like, we're not solidly pinpointed anywhere. Yeah.
But after this, we see that the weird lives. He slaps the last girl who's still alive.
Good. You know, I'm glad he's alive.
Yeah, I like this little bit because it's showing that he's still just a thief. Even in the chaos, he's like, "All right,
he's just taking what I can." Yeah, he's just taking stuff.
Because we have that moment where like it gets like a little perverted, where like he's reaching between the dead woman's legs, and we're like, "Okay, this is really creepy." But then you see he's not going for what we think. It's that misleading thing of like our minds are purposely led that way. And it's like, nope, he saw. He was searching for, like, the spare money she keeps hidden up there or something.
Yes, exactly.
Not up there, but, you know what I mean.
Garter style.
Yes, Garter style. But now we fully have the good who enters, who is... I like how he enters because... And we know he's good initially because he's saving a woman, but he's still a little clunky against the stronger dudes.
Yes, but also looks badass the entire time that he is out there.
Mm-hmm.
Just riding around the top of the train looking dope.
Oh, yeah. And, also, I wanted to bring up part of the reason I like the scene with the weird is it's also a way to bring the map back into our consciousness that, like, this is what everything's here for, and now we have this random element that's gonna throw it into chaos.
And somehow the idiot has it.
Yes. Which, the bad gets to the train car, finds his target dead, but he hears gunshots in the fight between the good, and now we finally get the fighting between the good, the bad, and the weird.
I like how the weird is taken off into the desert, and the good is just shooting at him.
Yeah, and just
you're doing the duck, dodge, dive, and weave.
Yeah, and I don't know where Song Kang-ho came up with this running style because it is the most goofiest cartoon run I have seen in a movie. But it works.
Yes, and he does variations of this throughout the whole movie. Because this character manages to get himself stuck in these situations a lot. And so, yeah, it's goofy, it's over the top, but you're like, you know what? It's kind of genius. Because, like, yeah, you would be hard to hit doing that.
Yeah, exactly. And eventually the good gets knocked off the train, and the bad kills the woman who the weird saved. Because she won't stop screaming. But
proving
also
that he is the worst of the bad.
Exactly. And I do like how it shows how bad he is, because this is where the music really shifts from like the Western to the goofy soundtrack that is pretty much the rest of this movie.
Yeah. It's a good soundtrack, but it doesn't necessarily, you're not humming it when you're done, but it adds a level.
I don't know if you could hum this one, is the thing.
That's true. But it does such a nice job of like reiterating the characters but with music that you really kind of need this specific soundtrack with this movie.
Yeah. And in this also the good start shooting at the bad as a group watches over them, like the Meiji and the mummy.
Yes. I also love that the group watching over them looks just as confused as you, the audience.
I love their line. Any guesses as to what's going on here? And obviously, one of them knows what's happening because they obviously know the weird.
Yes. But, he's like, isn't that a friend of yours? He's like, not anymore.
Yep. Also should note that the train is moving at this point. The Weird got up and got the other lady to start it.
Yes.
And that's why she got killed. But just this whole introduction to this movie is just, it makes everything feel unpredictable and that no one is safe.
And also it sets the pace for the rest of the movie too. There's going to be scenes of like, there's going to be parts of kind of a lull, but never a drag like in a normal Western. And this is just going to be, get ready for chaos and action for the next 2 hours.
Exactly. And even in this, we do have a little bit where we find out where, that the good was actually hunting both the bad and the weird because they are wanted men.
Yeah. I like that, much like an anime, he keeps the wanted posters in his pocket.
Yes.
And just like flips through them like index cards.
Maybe that's what they did in Westerns?
I
don't
don't
know. I mean, you see it in Westerns too with bounty hunters. They've got like a bill full of who they're going to chase.
No, I'm not saying it's not unrealistic. I just like that they are folded anime style. Oh. And he like has big versions, like the posters.
Yeah.
That he's like ripped off the tavern wall and folded as like, this one. I'm going to get this one.
Like a Pokedex.
Yeah. Only for bad guys.
But we cut to a city where the Weird finds his friend Mangil, portrayed by Sang-soo Ryu, or Ryu Sang-soo, who thinks it's that it is a treasure map because he heard rumors that's from before the fall of the Qing dynasty in 1912, which, again, for context, Manchuria was part of this dynasty. Also, Korea was, before this, was a tributary state to China.
Yes.
But it said that the treasure is buried somewhere in Manchuria, and that this map appeared at one point, and it was on the ghost market, but then it vanished.
Woo!
Yeah. But I also like this scene because the Weird is just so cautious and suspicious of everyone, even his friend.
Yes.
Where Mangil's like, oh, I can take care of it. He's like, no, give it back.
Yeah.
Give it back. No, you're not going to take this. But I also love how, despite how cautious he is about even being followed, we see like 3 dudes kind of listening in a little bit.
Yeah, like he's being cautious, but he's also not being that cautious.
No. But from here we cut to the Weird dreaming of treasure as a group comes to rob and or kill him.
Of course, like one does.
But even like as cautious as he is, I love that he has his like guns always like ready to go.
I like that it takes him hardly any time to get ready to just jump out a window.
No.
The man is constantly ready.
Well, and also he's sleeping in his clothes. He doesn't have a change of clothes.
No, but like, even if he had a change of clothes, he's the sort of person who would have put his clothes on over his pajamas to leap out the window.
Yeah. Which his sneaking out is like, feels like an awkward one-night stand, but...
It does. It really does.
It's also funny because he messes it up, and then the guy who's trying to kill him introduces himself that he's there.
Yes. I appreciate that he is so bad at being a bad guy that other people lower themselves to him.
Exactly. And also just the way he sneaks out too is trying to go through the other person's...
I like the scene that they stumble upon, because it feels like someone in the writing room was like, alright, he's gonna go next door, go in through their window and out through that door. And everyone's like, okay, cool, what's in that room? And they're like, okay, well, a sex scene. And someone's like, a tied up sex scene.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm sure it's toned down for rating reasons, but if I remember right, hardcore or anything is banned in South Korea, so...
I mean, you get the implications.
Yeah.
It's very clear.
It's not the drive angry sex scene.
It is not. And also, like, I kind of don't care that it's not super explicit. It's kind of funnier that it's not.
Exactly. It's kind of like a childish retelling of the events.
It totally feels like someone in the writing room who knew what was happening, and everyone else was like, and he has underwear on.
Yes. Yeah, which we get a little bit of action as he makes his very brief escape, like jumping on a bamboo pole and then climbing back up the roof to get out.
He just kind of, like, it again, you spend all this time being like, wow, this man's really dumb, and then he just easily escapes.
Yeah, luck is always on his side is the thing.
Yes.
Yeah, for the most part.
almost to the point where you have to wonder if he makes his own luck.
Yeah, well, and I think there's a line later on of, like, one of the gangs is like, oh, if we know him, he's going to make it. This man's got luck on his side.
He's the unkillable idiot.
Yes, exactly. And so from here we cut to the old man from the beginning, locking his house as the bad has snuck in.
Ooh.
Also, the way he messes with people is great, because he's gonna double-cross this guy, and this guy's like, you don't realize who you're dealing with. I'm the one who brought you in from the street when you were a drunkard.
Rude. This man's clearly scarier than you.
Yeah, well, even then, like, I feel the bad planned this stuff out, too, because this is very much from The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, the killing of the guy who hired him in the beginning.
Oh, yeah, no, it's meant to set him up as, like, he is the ultimate double-cross.
Yeah. But his kill is so smooth.
It is the fucking coolest thing. He
Yeah.
just, like, spins around and stabs in the back of the neck. And you're like... And this also helps to set up the lie later on in the movie, because we learn that there's other bad guys roaming around who have reputations.
Mm-hmm.
And so this smooth, cold-hearted killing just really sets you up for, like, this guy has to be the worst.
Yeah.
There is no way anyone else in this movie could possibly top him for being the worst.
No, he is absolutely awful. Which, also, side note, the song that's in this scene is the closing of... Well, it's in The Shining, as well as the closing of the last podcast on the left for a bit.
And it is perfectly placed.
Oh, it's great. But I also like the scene, too, because not only does he double-cross this guy, but he breaks into his safe, finds diamonds, as well as a bunch of money.
And I like that it's not American-style diamonds. These are big-ass, chunky diamonds.
Teardrop diamonds,
And they've already been cut and, like, set and mounted. Whereas, like, a normal Western, an American Western, that is, would have tiny little pebble diamonds.
Yeah.
And they'd be like, ooh, shiny rocks. And this one's like, no, jewels.
Yeah. Well, and I also like this because he takes that, but he still wants more. Like, this isn't it. Like, he has enough that he could comfortably live for a long time.
Oh, but that's kind of the running, like, thing for all three of our characters, is we see throughout this whole movie, time and again, that, like, all of them could stop what they're doing and be fine. But they're greedy bastards who want more.
Very much so. And I'll get into why his is more and why I think he is so interesting as a character. To be honest, the Good is the most boring character in this whole movie.
He is, but I will give him credit. For someone playing the most boring character, he does a damn good job.
Oh, he does. But his character is important because he's like kind of that...
He's above.
He's the normal of us watching this.
Yes.
Yeah, or what we think would be normal.
Well, and also, like, again, this movie's already pretty freaking long. There's only so many people we can focus on and not, like, just really lose ourselves.
Yep.
So yeah, leaving a lot of one character to be up to the imagination, not bad.
Yep. And as he's raiding everything, the Weird is told by one of his lackeys that, the Bad's told that the Weird has ran to the Ghost Market, which is where we cut to.
And the Ghost Market is exactly what you assume. A market for thieves.
Yeah, and I mean, for something, this is a weird one too, because for something that's supposed to be underground, it's pretty out in the open.
No, it's just like a normal town market that happens to have men standing on the roofs with guns.
Yeah. Well, and they also said, like, this was supposed to be really the mashing of cultures and just random things, because we see an elephant, like, part of a Hindu statue.
Not just a Hindu, so the whole, like, vibe of this town is like, oh, if you have stolen goods, this is where you go.
Yeah.
And it's not even, like, a secret. It's like, everyone knows this is where you go. I'm pretty sure that is the reclining Buddhist statue that's located in Japan. It's like a famous statue. And I feel like this was kind of meant to be like hey, the Statue of Liberty is just over there.
Yeah, or it's like Bond villain level thefts.
Yes, like all of this stuff is meant to be like, we have stolen the moon!
Yeah. But I like it. It's an interesting mash of cultures. And you can see, like, this is the Blade Runner influence.
Yes, but I like the direction this went with as opposed to Blade Runner example. Normally when we get, like, oh, this is the market where we sell the illegal goods, it's underground, it's in the dark, in an alley, it's, like, cramped, there's lots of weird stuff going on. No, this is, like, an average market. There's, like, a guy doing flamethrower tricks in front of kids for money. in like the background of one of the scenes, there's like just people be like, do you want to buy a hot dog? Do you want to buy a hot dog? Like,
narwhal tusk?
Yeah. And like, they're just out in the open during the afternoon. No secret.
Yeah.
Like, surprise! Welcome to the bad guy lair. It's happy.
Yeah. But, I mean, that's also one thing that makes this movie feel unique, is that Kim brought up in his interviews that he created every corner of this world to make it feel real. Kind of like how Sukiyaki Western Django, how out there it was.
Yes.
It still felt like it could be a real place in real time.
And this is what helps a lot, because, like, it doesn't feel too much like a jab from any of the other sources.
Exactly. But the Weird is meeting with Mangill, with what is presumably the Weird's grandma's house.
He calls her Granny, and Granny is my second favorite character in this whole movie.
I feel Granny is, like, the old man for the bad, and she just kind of took him in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not sure Granny knows where she is or what's going on.
No.
But that's okay.
No. But the Ghost Market Thugs, also called Byung-Chun's Bandits, plus the Japanese army, are after them, as we find out.
Of course.
It also should be noted that Byung-Chun plays a bit of an antagonist role, but feels rather minor in the scheme of things.
You kind of quickly forget.
He's portrayed by Yoon Ji-moon, and plays the homeless man in The Host.
Oh.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that.
I didn't either.
Okay.
I didn't either until I looked him up. But I like this part because also the his friend Mangill is like, hey, you realize that you're a wanted man. You have your bounty's gone up, and he's like, well, and he's like, they only want that much for me, and
he only wants 300, and he's like, I'm worth as much as a piano. A used piano.
Yeah, and he's like, or his this. I'll bring this part up later, but he's like, you're just a petty thief. He's like, that's what they think, kind of, or no.
And they're like, no, you literally robbed a train.
Oh, for a petty thief, he's like, or shit, I'm blanking on this one. It's like, he's like, for a petty thief, he's like, but you are a petty thief. Yeah. That's how it goes.
Yeah. He's upset that they called it as it is.
Yeah. Which, also, the Weird speaks French too, I guess?
Why not? But also, like, maybe he only speaks 2 words, because that would be also on par.
Yeah. But they're found out as the Ghost Market Thugs come to shoot them out.
Is Granny okay, though? That's all I care about.
Yeah, because this is the weird, endearing moment where, like, the old
like,
Granny feels like the only person the Weird cares for.
Also, though, they, like, pick her up like a stuffed doll.
Yeah.
And shove her in a closet and are just like, okay, we'll be back, and then leave. And you're like, wait, Grandma!
Yeah, exactly. Which the Weird does go on the run, and his motorcycle is gunned down by the good in the desert.
Yes.
Which, one, I like how the motorcycle goes down like a horse.
Yeah, it feels very appropriate.
His reward's even gone up again from 35 to 300 won.
Ooh.
And this is our first real, like, slow moment of the movie, where the Weird is being such a dirtbag this whole time.
Yes, but he feels like a trickstery dirtbag.
Yes. Also, one thing I do want to say, the difference between the movie and the trailer, the movie removed the Wilhelm scream.
Yeah, I did. I'm not mad.
okay with that.
Yeah, I'm not mad about it this time.
No. But like in The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, the Weird is roped to the horse, and the music is back to being on point and weird and awkward.
I love that once again, this man is forced to run in an awkward format, because they tie his knees together and then put him behind the horse, and the horse isn't really going that fast, but he's going fast enough that he can't, like, comfortably waddle behind the horse.
Yep.
So he's having to do a little penguin jump skittle the whole way.
It's adorable.
It is, until he falls over and is just being dragged behind the horse. Which, honestly, I feel like at this point, less effort.
Yep. And the Good has taken the Weird to the house of a woman named Song Yi, who is confused that the Weird can speak.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
I like that she looks at him and is like, why did you bring this here?
Exactly. Which, we also get the moment where the Weird is street smart. He's able to kind of get out.
No, he does get out. The only thing is he didn't think this plan all the way through, much like everything else he does in this movie.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing. He's street smart, but he's not book smart, because he he's very smart to, like, catch on to, like, hey, if this thing falls, they'll hear it. But he runs right into them cooking and eating
He just,
dinner.
like, walks into them.
He's like, oh, I was gonna warn you that
it came undone.
Yeah.
You gotta be careful about that. Someone might escape.
Which
Not me, though.
That's the thing I love about this movie as well, is there is this awkward tension through, like, every interaction the Weird is in.
Yes, and also the Weird's type of humor fits really nicely and is a nice, like, break in the lull moments, because, like, without it, you'd be like, I mean, yeah, I do want to know what happens, but, like, it is a lot funnier for him to just walk in on them having dinner.
Exactly. It's like in Memories of Murder when his character, like, will randomly, like, drop kick
Yes.
suspects, and it's like
unnecessary, but it is necessary.
Yeah,
I need it.
You feel it also helps make him feel like a real character and not some play on something else.
I also think that this scene helps really solidify for us that the Weird is playing off of luck quite a bit and has for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, he's smart, there's definitely more to him, but he might just be that dumb. Like, it adds a layer of doubt to the character, because up until now, if you're an astute movie watcher, especially for a Western or an action film, it hasn't been terribly, like, there's been so much action with him that he's just managed to full-on dodge whole ass fights worth of bullets. Yeah. And it's just like, yep, I'm fine. And so it's nice to see him fail at something for you to be like, oh no, maybe he's just real fucking lucky.
We'll get there.
Yeah.
But then we cut to the Bad, who's in a movie theater watching some American movie. I couldn't find what it was.
I couldn't either. I would like to imagine that he's watching, like, a Disney movie.
I want to say it's some Hollywood drama or something from the 30s.
Maybe Casablanca.
Maybe.
Something real standard. It's a nice normal movie.
Yeah, something like that.
I would like to think.
And he's kind of giving some hints of where stuff's at, and we get this, like, cut to where he's in his room or house that's pretty European style.
It's meant to be very fancy.
Yeah. But we also get a very sexy shot of him shirtless and his skill with killing a centipede with a knife.
I'm not gonna lie. When the movie started, it was made very clear that the good is the handsome man, because he is a very handsome man. But boy, they throw the bad real hard into the handsome category too. Like, there's options for those interested in man pecs.
I don't know.
And a steely gaze.
The Weird has a certain appeal to me.
No, that's kind of the joy of this whole movie, is like, there's something for everyone's taste
exactly. Here. We cut back to the ghost market, and it's appeared that Man Gill has sold them out as he's memorized the map and given it to the ghost market bandits.
Very impressive. He memorized this whole map, and then we learn later that it's not really that impressive.
No, because the Weird returns and find Granny in the closet still.
I love that Grandma's still in, and, like, she, like, got out, got sweets, put them next to the closet, and has just been occasionally opening the door, reaching down and having a candy.
Yep, and also gave the map to Mangill.
She was not told not to.
No, she was. When he was putting her in the closet, he's like, don't give this map to anyone. She's like, not even Mangill? Not even Mangill!
And then she immediately does it.
Yeah.
I love Grandma.
But then she immediately tries giving him candy.
Yes. Grandma doesn't know where or when she is, and I love her.
Nope. And then the Bad finds Mangill, which he ends up beating the shit out of him.
Yes.
Which further shows Bad's cruelty. His friend is shitty, but he doesn't deserve this.
Not that level.
His friend is apparently shitty. We'll get into why his friend is not shitty.
They're all shitty. They're just different levels of shitty.
Which, the Weird decide, this part is drawn out for, like, cutting off a finger, because it's trying to cut it off with a blunt knife.
I kind of liked this, though, because, like, this movie does not shy away from adding blood to bullets or cuts for the fight scenes. This is our first, like, torture-y graphic scene, and I don't know, it kind of adds a level of ice to the Bad.
Yes.
Because otherwise, like, it would be too easy for you to imagine him distancing himself with a lot of the shooting and with, like, the quick, clean stabbing.
It's like the ear scene in Pulp Fiction. Or or Reservoir Dogs.
Yes, exactly. This adds and like they show his gang and posse around him like trying very stoically to watch him cut off this finger, and like the longer it takes, the more of them are like cracking and like having to look away.
Yeah.
So like it's just proving that like out of even the bad ones, he is the worst.
Yeah. And he's doing it to send a message, and we'll get into that later.
I love this subplot.
This subplot's been going since we've been introduced to the bad.
Yes, and it's so perfectly tied together.
Yes.
It adds just a nice layer.
But from here, it's good and weird to the rescue. I like that the good is using the weird as bait to show that he's a bit selfish too.
Yeah, I also like this movie for not putting the good on like a pedestal, or even putting the weird on a pedestal, because that would have been fairly easy to be like, oh no, you didn't understand this whole time. No, they're both bastards. Mm-hmm. They're just not as bad as the other guy.
Exactly. And this is another part of like the awkwardness of the movie, is the weird is asking the good if he should just start across or should he do a zigzag style to distract them.
And he of course chooses the zigzag style to distract them, so he duck, dodge, dives, and weaves his way through a bunch of bullets again.
Yes. But there's this moment too where like the bad's just, or the good just looking at him like, the fuck are you talking about, man?
And also, I love how when he's out there duck, dodge, diving, and weaving across these, like, bullets are literally raining down on him. Yeah. And he is just managing to dodge all of them. Even the good is like, how are you alive? How have you made it this long? And especially since the obvious solution is step to the left and shoot.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and that's the thing, is the good's actually a solid fighter in this. Like, we see him gunning down everyone with his long rifle.
And, like, fairly impressively.
Yeah, which we also see him do a Tarzan-style gunslinging method.
Pretty dope.
Also should be mentioned that all the leads did their own stunts, which is
very
unusual
impressive
in itself, too.
Especially since a lot of these stunts are not just, like, standard Western stunts of, like, riding a horse or being on top of the train or swinging around. Like, there's some fancy gun handling stunts in this as well.
Oh, yeah. And I also like, because the weird eventually does get away. Yeah, that's right. He has to fight. He ends up fighting the big dude from the train as well.
Yes.
He's getting his ass kicked, because there's that part where like he pushes him up through the ceiling, and the good looks down on him like, what the hell's going on down there?
And he's asking for a gun, and the good just like gently tosses one to him, and it misses entirely
before he gets pulled down, but he still gets out. But I like that his way of getting out is donning
an old style diving helmet.
That's the right word.
Yeah, because it's bulletproof, and so it just
totally
tingles off of him, and then he can shoot them.
Yeah. Which, that's another thing. There's dead bodies all over the place in this scene.
Yeah, at this point we've killed most of the market.
And despite how good the good is, no one feels like that expert gunslinger either.
No one feels so much better than everyone else.
No.
Like, it's very clear that the good is excellent, but, like, it doesn't feel like he's superhuman.
Yeah. And the weird feels like Frank Reynolds and It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, where he's like, then I started blasting.
Yeah, then I came out.
But my seeing's not so good, so I missed.
Yeah.
And I don't run so good.
I fired, and then I missed.
Well, he's always like trying to... It also feels like he's just kind of shooting randomly. Like, he's not actually trying to hit people. He's just shooting to shoot.
Yes, but he does manage to hit an uncomfortable amount of people for someone who's, like, theoretically not aiming.
No.
He hits more people than most stormtroopers in Star Wars.
There's a theory to that, but we'll save that for another day.
I know about the theory, but, like, the fact remains that someone not trying hits more bodies.
But the shootout ends with the bad riding out of town with Mangill hogtied behind him, which the good shoots him free, but he still ends up dying. And
I mean, we saw it coming.
Yeah.
We saw it coming when he got beat up and then hogtied. You're like, oh that man's dead.
Yeah, which the weird at this point seems more concerned with the map than his friend.
I can't say I'm terribly surprised, though, because at no point do they give the illusion that they are besties. They very much feel like the only person in this world he truly cares about is Grandma, and even that is a loose love.
Yes, very much
He
so.
left her in a closet.
He was trying to keep her safe while he left.
Yeah, and then when he came back, I was like, you're still in the closet. Someone was supposed to take care of you. Okay, bye, Grandma.
Yeah. Actually, yeah, Grandma's kind of forgotten the rest of this movie.
Yeah, we don't know what happens to Grandma. I like to think someone comes and gets her and puts her in their home where she belongs.
I hope so.
Like a cat.
Yeah. But we cut to the Bad having a meal with his gang, where there are rumors that he had a duel with Goon Tae-ho. Or,
Ooh.
no, it's not Goon. The Weird.
Yes.
And lost. I wrote down the name wrong, I'm sorry.
But the entire time at this point, they're calling him by the finger crusher or slicer?
Nope. We are nowhere near that.
Ah, darn.
Yoon Taegu. That's his name. I just typed wrong. But this also deepens his battle with the Weird and also shows why this is a bit more personal than just him wanting treasure.
It always is.
Yeah. Which the Bad asserts his dominance with his gang by
just killing him.
Yeah, just killing the guy who called him out on it.
I also like that this proves that, like, the Bad doesn't necessarily need all of these bad guys that he's collected. He's like, no, if I wanted to, y'all are disposable. Like, real disposable. You're not even Red Solo Cup level. You are paper napkin.
Yeah. That's a good way of putting disposable. But we do get a small bit with the Weird burying his friend, which is a nice way to show that he did really care. It wasn't just...
He's not heartless.
No.
I mean, he's still not great, but, like, he at least feels bad.
Yep.
That he died.
And we do have a little bit of a slow moment because that night, the Good and the Weird discussed the famous finger chopper who has a ruthless gang leader who fled Korea, and his signature calling card was a chopping off fingers. And the Good believes that the Bad is the one is the finger chopper, which we saw him cut the fingers earlier.
We did see that, but anyone with any two eyeballs in their head can go, nope, that's... something else is going on here. You might not know what yet, but it is clear that there's more to the story.
I think on a first viewing, but with us watching it a few times, it's something that's easily missed because there's a little thing here because the Weird says something along the lines of like, that's not what I've heard.
Yes, and then goes off to have a giggle fit to himself.
Yes, which we also find out that the thieves have rules and he's not a terrible person.
But he is, but, like, it's not, like, you know, if I'm gonna break in and someone's already stealing, I'm gonna let him finish.
Yeah, which the Weird, that's exactly what it is. It's whoever gets there first gets the treasure.
Yeah, until I steal it later.
Yeah, pretty much. But we get their little goals of the Weird has visions of a simple life.
It's very Thanos-y. You know, I've wrecked all this havoc, and all I really want is a little farm with some goats and sheep and dogs.
Yeah. But we do get some good stuff, too, that the Good is asking, like, why doesn't he just go back to Korea? And he's like, live under nobility or live under the Japanese.
For me, it is the same.
Exactly. And that we also get the really good line of, a life of chasing something leads to being chased.
There's a lot of good ones in here.
Yeah, it's a nice little building moment between the Weird because it helps develop his character as someone on the run as well. And
it also helps take the Good edge off, because when he gets asked, well, what would you do if you had all that money? And he's like, I don't know. I don't really do it for the money.
Yeah.
I do it for the thrill.
Yeah, he's not a bounty hunter for the money.
No.
Yeah. Which... Kim did mention that this scene probably appeals more to the Korean audience and their sensibility for a time frame and the main character when none of them had a home to go back to. And I have an inkling of this growing up in a military family with no real permanent home, but not the same kind of like your home being occupied by a foreign entity.
Sure, I think I can understand the sentiment, but I do think that the line is powerful enough that it translates really well to no matter who's watching. Yeah.
And in the morning, we have a weird moment where the Weird runs off after holding a gun at the Good.
He's thought of kind of a plan, it's just not a very good plan.
Yeah, I don't think the holding of the gun part worked well overall, or whatever Kim was trying to do with it. Maybe show that the Weird isn't a good guy, or he killed the good. I don't.
It's a little muddy. I will agree.
Yeah, it just doesn't work for me.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Which now we cut to the ghost gang who has found the ocean.
I love that they have gone all the way to the ocean.
Yes, which is a nice little humor of the buildup of like, oh, it should be over that hill. You two go up there. Go tell us what you see. We see it. We see the ocean.
I also love that when they're like, oh, the guy memorized the map. What did he memorize? Well, you go left a ways. Yeah. And then you go right over a hill. And, like, they're in the desert. There's, like, hills everywhere.
It's like a last little middle finger from Mangill, but it's also a way to show that he was trying to get one of the people off their tails, at least for a little bit.
Yes, and it worked. They were dumb enough to believe him.
Yeah. Yeah. But from here, we cut to the Weird who's on his own little journey and is distracted by the ladies of an opium den.
I love that he just stumbles across this oasis in a desert style opium den.
It makes me think of, there's another, I think it's a Hong Kong movie. It's called A Woman, a Gun, a Noodle Shop.
It sounds amazing.
It's pretty slow and boring.
Ah, bummer.
Yeah, it's not what you think it is. But she runs like a noodle shop that's in the middle of absolutely nowhere.
Yeah, and like, I'm not saying that the placement is necessarily like too far out of reality, especially since it is a Ladies of the Night plus opium den. But it is kind of that like, Hotel California, like, ghost hotel. It almost feels like a mirage that he's stumbled into. I kind of like it.
I dig it too.
I also like that as he's walking through, he's trying to be all cool. He's got his cool sunglasses on. He's taking off his dumb hat. And he's like, no, I'm cool too. But as he's walking around, he's just blatantly staring at everyone.
This is the only nudity we see in the movie.
And he's like, stumbles across a lady in bed. And it just stops walking to stare.
Yep, I mean...
He's so blessedly dumb.
But at the same time, he seems very confused by this place because as he gets approached by the owner, who's also a Korean independence fighter.
Because why not?
Yeah, who's like, hey, you're good. You're fine here. You're safe. You're safe. You don't got to worry about anyone. We're brothers in arms, man. Which he takes the Weird to a private chamber where there are some rather lovely women.
There are. And we attempt to drug him.
By blowing smoke in his face and also serving him spiked drinks.
But can that take down our beloved Weird man?
It takes a long time because...
It takes too long. They're like getting to the point where you can see it in the owner's eyes where he's like, why is this man still awake?
Yeah, because he's getting pissy at the woman blowing smoke in his face of like, why are you doing that? Stop it, blow it somewhere else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he's like, maybe we should have given him more.
Exactly. But it also just shows that everyone's a sleazebag here on the outskirts.
Yes.
And we
Mad Max style.
Yeah, and we get a little moment of the good contemplating going in, and then he just carries on.
Because he is the good. And that's the only thing that makes him the good, is he's too good for an opium den.
Or to even go in.
Yeah, for now.
Yeah. Which, the Weird wakes up in a prison with children.
I do like that there are children in the prison. Because, like, there hasn't been children in this movie except for in this prison.
And there are children in the market.
Yeah, like in the background.
Yeah.
These children are like, he's there and he's like, children! Ah!
Yeah, they feel like they're slaves or they're...
They definitely, like, it adds a layer of, like, sleazy, underground ring sort of, like, mindset where you're like, okay, it was already an opium den, but, like, we didn't care. Now we care. We don't know why we care. We don't know what you're doing, but there are now children in the basement.
Exactly. Which, we do see that the Weird is trying not to traumatize the kiddos too much.
But the kiddos, I mean, they're pretty brutal.
Yeah, because when the jailer comes, he, tries to beat the shit out of him, gets his ass beat a little bit, but ends up ramming a sword up the dude's ass.
No, the children ram the sword
No. Later they do.
Oh, that's right.
He does it the first time and tells them to close their eyes. And then he rams the sword up the guard's ass.
Yes.
And then, the Weird is just, let's go at it and go with every situation because he's like, all right, let's go.
He just rolls with it.
Well, it's kind of like a Scooby-Doo moment where, like, they're trying to leave and then he hears the opium guy of, like, this idiot fell for this. Independence fighters, we got the treasure map. This will fund our entire operations forever.
Hooray!
Yeah, which I love that the Weird tries the same trick he did with the last guy.
Yes.
And the axe gets stuck in
Yes.
the ceiling.
And then he's just forced to fight with a stick.
Yeah, which steals it from Mr. Independence and stabs him in the ass too.
Woohoo!
Yeah.
We did it.
Which the Weird escapes with the kiddos in tow.
And then we get rid of the kids and we never see them again. Goodbye, children.
Very, very quickly, which I assume he'd probably drop them off at the closest town.
Yeah, I mean, we don't need them. They're not crucial to the story.
No. But Japan is now sending in all the troops along with the Bad, who's now in a very bad mood.
Of course he is.
Yeah. But it's also a nice way to take the map and use all the parties to converge in the rather deserted town.
It is very westerny feeling.
Yeah. And so the fight begins.
Yes.
Which I like that the Weird is always looking out for the weak too and everything, because this is the part where the kids aren't appeared again. And we finally get some questions of the map, but people are asking like, is this map really real?
Is it also worth all of this work you're putting in? And he's like, yeah, why not?
Yeah, and I love the Weird's fighting style in this because he's on his motorcycle and he's just like shooting behind him randomly.
But it's not even like pointing the right way half the time.
No.
But again, luck is on his side. He manages to hit a few people.
Yeah, and there's a lot of like good edited quick shots back and forth between everything.
Oh yeah. The fighting is so well choreographed and edited that like none of it feels overly repeated, nothing feels too stale. And you also don't get bored watching it, despite there being a lot of fighting in this movie.
Yeah. And the flamboyant costumes of everyone's great, especially the gang.
Yes, the gang's costumes feel very, like they raided the costume closet and just went with whatever they've grabbed.
Yep. And also when the Japanese pull out their machine gun, it feels kind of like a few dollars more. Where like they're robbing the fort.
Yes, very much.
Yeah. Which it's also a good way to show that the Good's a very classic gunslinger too. He's doing the whole shoot, twist
Reload.
the gun.
Oh, it's so badass looking. It looks so cool.
This whole thing, this whole scene is great, and especially with the Weird swapping vehicles halfway through.
Yes, and then the coolest, like, just to like cherry on top how cool the good guy is he gets shot like right next to his ear and it goes through his hat and leaves a little hole. And, like, you're like, God damn, this man's dope.
Yeah, he is. Which, I like the rock music for this.
I do, too.
But for how long this scene is, like, maybe a 10-minute scene.
It does go on for quite a while. But because there's so many parties happening, you kind of don't care too much.
Yeah, but the music at least feels a bit repetitive. Like, they could have added a little extra.
Yeah, or at least a song that had more, like, different parts to it for a longer piece. It definitely feels like it was like had a loop in there.
Yeah. Which the one thing I do like about this part too is what the music stops when the Japanese pull out the big guns and start blasting away at everyone. Got the mortars going. Yeah, cannons.
Yeah,
kind of
similar.
Yeah. But it's a nice brief stop as the Bat is still going very hard after getting knocked from his horse.
And he like gets off, shoots a man, takes his horse, and keeps going.
Yeah. You know what's impressive about this guy, though?
He catches back up.
Not only that, but the real-life actor. I guess he only had about 10 lessons to learn because right before, or his first lesson, he broke his ankle.
Oops.
And he kind of had to just go with it.
He does a great job, you would not know.
No, not at all. I think he had a cast on in this scene, too.
Dang,
because he still had a broken ankle.
You would not know.
Yeah, which the Weird still gets out and...
Of course he does. The man's lucky as hell.
Yeah, ahead of everyone, like, still with his car and everything.
Yeah.
Or no, he gets off and... that's right, he gets off and starts running for a bit, too.
Yeah, like, this man... makes no sense. He should not have made it, but he does.
Nope. To a very abandoned building / maybe was a village.
Maybe a house? Kind of hard to tell.
I don't know. Time to dig.
Yeah. You know, in what appears to be a grave.
Yeah. Which the Bat is fighting off others and killing the last of his gang, showing he is truly a scumbag.
Truly a scumbag, but also kind of proving his earlier point of, like, when he fell, and instead of just being, like, out of the race, he, like, got back up and, like, rejoined everyone.
Yeah.
Because he's killing them because they gave up. He's like, no, you should have kept fighting until you died.
Exactly. Well, they kind of did because he...
Well, he killed them, but, like, he's not a good manager.
Yeah.
This isn't good. This isn't good for morale.
Which, the Weird does finally find the treasure location, as the Good finds him.
Of course.
Which, I love his looking with the opera glasses. It just adds that little of quirkiness.
Yes, it almost feels like a Jackie Chan move, and I like it.
Fun fact, I have those opera glasses, or I have opera glasses like that.
I love them.
Yeah. They don't work very well, but I got them.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's just a fun bit that just adds, like, a little unexpectedness to his character.
And also reminds you that he is still the idiot.
Very much so. I mean, you don't need to see that far in a flat desert.
No.
At least flat enough where he's at.
And also, the thing he was looking for is literally about 2 feet in front of him.
Yep. Which the Good makes him start to dig for, which I feel the Good's change in character here is a bit odd, where, like, he's wanting the treasure now.
Yeah, a little bit, but also, I kind of get it, because up until this point, I think the Good has, like, erred on the side of, like, the map's probably not real.
Yeah.
And now that we are here, we are at the X, I might as well.
Yeah, because, earlier on, the Weird's like, hey, let's split it 60-30. And so when he tells him to dig first, he's like, oh, you're having me dig first because I get the bigger share kind of thing.
Yes, yes, a ballsy move to assume that your captor wants the smaller cut, but sure.
Yeah, which he digs down and there's nothing, but there's an explosion under them that causes the floorboards all to fall out.
It's not made super clear. I read in a couple of places where they were trying to type out the plot that, like, some people thought it was a lightning strike, some people thought it was a rigged explosion, some people thought that it was just old and, like, national. Like,
I'm leaning on the side of old.
I am too. I'm feeling like National Treasure style. It just rotted through.
Yeah,
but it's not super duper clear.
No, not in the least. Because after this, the Bad finds them, and it's time to play a game to the death. Which...
I like that we stand in a triangle and we're all just gonna shoot until somebody dies.
Yeah, which I also love this scene too, because the Bad keeps trying to taunt the Weird, because the Weird's originally like, yeah, no, I'm done. There's no treasure here. I'm out of here. Peace
you
off,
guys. You guys can have it. Anything you find is yours. I'm going home.
Yeah, and even then, the Bad is like, hey, here's some more treasure. If you want the treasure, if you win, you get to keep this. And the Weird just sits there for a second. He's like,
this is a lot of money.
I'm out.
I'm good.
I'm out.
I don't need it.
I'm done. This place is too much. Which he does start walking away, and then the Bad shoots him his hat off,
and not just once, but like 4 or 5 times. Like he makes the hat run away.
It makes it dance, basically. It makes him dance a little bit. But the thing that turns it on its side is that oh no, the Weird is actually the finger chopper.
The whole time.
And the Bad was the victim.
He's got a metal finger, which is a cool prop.
Yep. All running for different reasons. And this is where I want to talk about 3 great moments of writing of, if you were watching this the first time,
yes,
that would easily miss.
Oh, yeah, there's quite a bit.
First off, the Weird being pissy about his bounty being so low and stating that or confused that he's just a thief.
Yes.
That's the first bit. And then the Bad still wanting even more after the treasure's in front of him because he knows the Weird has the map.
Yeah. And
then Mangill is caught and the Bad cuts off his fingers to send a message.
To the finger cutter.
Exactly, which is that little nice bit of misdirection.
Yes, because he's clearly not good at it, because it takes him forever to cut that finger off.
Yep. And there was a part that I skipped over specifically for this, because there's the way he kills the opium den dealer and the guard is described by the people who find them as deranged, and only a madman would do this. And finally, when the Good and the Weird are camping, and the Good is talking about the rumors that that he says that's not what I heard.
Yeah.
And starts giggling to himself.
Yeah, because he knows.
He knows all these dipshits. I'm the finger chopper.
Tee-hee-hee.
And it is time for the triple standoff.
A classic.
Quick and violent, and they all fall down as oil spurts from the ground.
You say quick. They all shoot each other more times than is strictly necessary.
It's like a 3-minute shooting scene.
It is, and okay, I get it. You don't want, all of these people have been proven to be very adept, and also probably have been shot before.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm not expecting any of them to go down via one shot.
No.
However, we just, shoot the hell out of each other for, a minute.
It's great. It's awesome. It's over the top and fun.
It is very over the top.
Yeah, which, from here, they all fall down, oil spurts from the ground, so there kind of was treasure.
Back then, this would have been a lot of fucking money.
Fool's gold.
Just gold. Just black gold.
Black gold. Texas tea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially because this is playing a lot heavy-handedly off of the whole, Western themes. Yeah, this would have been a very profitable find. Very
much so.
And also ties back into the little hints that we saw earlier where, there's just a rundown house and barrels.
Yeah. And also this whole movie has been all on rumors of something being out there.
Yes. But, of course, the weird being the dumbass he is, assumed it was buried treasure.
Technically treasure.
It was technically buried treasure. It just wasn't diamonds and
wasn't
pearls.
Wasn't the treasure he was wanting.
He was imagining a room full of gold, wasn't he?
Yeah. Pretty much. Or at least a chest full of gold.
Something like that.
Or maybe a coffin like in Sukiyaki Western Django.
That would have also been good.
Yeah. Or The Good, the Bad, the Ugly too, but...
Yes.
Yeah. But the map blows away, and the credits begin to roll, but oh no, it's not over.
No.
There's a post-credit scene where the bad has been listed as dead. The weird is reward has gone up as the good watches on.
Of course.
And we get an Oriental Western by Kimchi Woon. The end? Or is it?
Ah!
Because the Korean ending is actually quite different than the Western release that we watched.
Yes.
You can find the full Korean release on YouTube. But there's a little bit after the shootout. The bad breathes his last. The weird reads the map and says, "I came to the wrong place." Which is kind of funny.
That is hilarious, actually.
But shortly after, gets up and is walking. He's like, "Why am I so heavy?" And then he removes an iron plate. A nod to the good, the bad, and the ugly from under his shirt.
So clever.
He goes to blow up the bad with dynamite. Pulls the bad into the structure underneath and is sticking dynamite in him.
Yes.
Where he finds the diamonds from the beginning of the movie in his pocket. He's getting super happy. But then the Japanese army comes and then he scares them away with dynamite that he ends up accidentally lighting all the other dynamite on. And it cuts to the post-credit scene where we see on the Western release, and then it cuts to the good at a poker table who shoots everyone asking where the weird's location is. So it's it's a more he's still hunting him rivalry instead of the one where how I interpreted the Western release was that there was kind of a camaraderie of they made it through this, so the weird's gone on his journey into the desert, and the good is just still doing his thing, and just
their paths have crossed, and now they're done.
Yeah, tips the hat and moves on.
Exactly.
The Korean version's so much different.
Yeah, but I kind of love it.
I like the Korean version so much better than the Western release. It only adds maybe 10 minutes to the movie or something.
But it feels so much it feels more like it fits with the rest of the movie.
Exactly.
At no point in this movie has any of these three characters shown that they can get rid of a grudge.
No.
They literally hold on to the pettiest of things.
Oh yeah, exactly. And yeah, it's I don't know. I don't get why they removed it. I'm sure it dealt with timing of how long they wanted to run it.
No idea.
But it's there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the good, the bad, the weird.
Yes, we did it.
Yes. And, well, I know there are other Korean Westerns. Kim did say that nothing had been done on this scale.
No, and, you can also tell that, especially compared to other variations on the Western, this one tried its hardest to, reroot itself as a Western with its own influences, as opposed to just recreating a Western. Yeah,
exactly. And I think they said it was the most expensive movie ever made in Korea for the time.
Sure, I have no idea.
For 2009 of when it was. Though I do wish he had marketed it as a kimchi Western.
That would have been cool.
Kind of like how Juzo Itamani referred to Tom Popo as a ramen western.
It would have added to the marketing quite a lot.
Yeah. And, I mean, it's understandable. There was a lot to this movie. There was 170 sessions, 400 people, 500 costumes, 200 guns, which the gun handler said was probably the most amount of guns ever in a Korean movie.
That's very possible.
And all over a difficult 300 days of shooting.
Yeah, this movie was impressive, and it looked good the whole time. Because we used a lot of practical effects, there wasn't anything visually that looked like it had aged.
No, not at all.
This movie looks great.
Oh, yeah. I think the only thing is maybe the opening credit with a hawk, but even then, that's quickly forgotten.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's quickly forgotten.
Yeah. Like, even the horse scenes were all done without a ton of computer added to them. So, like, it really doesn't have much of an age to it. Everything feels very authentic. The acting in it is solid and to the point.
Mm-hmm.
And sure, I have to read it I have to read all of the text, but I don't really mind because honestly, there's not a ton of dialogue to keep up with.
No, exactly. That's like, I was worried that this was going to be a 3-hour episode just because there is a lot in this movie, but there's also not at the same time.
This is almost nonstop action for a Western. And because it is all choreographed so well, and all of the acting is done so well, it all flies by really quick. And yeah, you could spend a lot of time peeling apart each character minutely if you really wanted to, because the actors spent time working on them. But because all three of them, their whole stories flow together, it all just kind of, those 2 hours fly by.
Oh, yeah. No, it's a very fast-paced movie. One of the other things I liked in hearing the commentary is that Kim, like Del Toro, said he never wanted to work with horses again.
Understandable.
Also, Kim hated working in China, probably because they were working in the fucking desert.
That would not help.
No, and that's what everyone says. Like, it was good, but, like, they had to get through everything so quickly, and, like, 300 days is still a long shoot.
It really is, especially since a lot of stuff's done in a few months.
Yeah, which they had to do it because they had to do it that way because there was constant like stopping. They had to start and then they had to stop because there was sand and shit. So
yeah, if you're shooting in the desert, you're at its mercy.
Yeah. Kim also did say the best thing about this movie is that he brought Song Lee and Jung together. Where Lee himself was afraid that his fans would not be fans of it since he had never played a bad guy before. Instead, he'd been the love interest, the heartthrob kind of dude.
He's the bad guy, though, in this one. And it's not like, oh, it's the bad guy. He's like the heartthrob bad guy. It's good. Yeah. It's a good role.
Yeah, no, exactly. But they ended up loving it. And, Kim was concerned about making a movie in an outdated genre, too. But he's stuck with the traditional narrative to keep it more comfortable for his core Korean audience, since he figured Western viewers would be more familiar with the genre compared to South Koreans.
Sure, and also because he stuck so hard to the tropes of the original Westerns, I honestly don't think this movie has or is going to age dialogue or written-wise very quickly.
I think it's gonna feel...
It's gonna feel timeless really easily.
No, it's gonna feel like a good parody of that genre without being
too parody-y.
Exactly.
Yeah, because we've seen a lot of parody of Westerns, and like Wild Wild West, they date themselves real quickly, even if they're not dating themselves as far as oh, there's a joke about cell phones in here, or they said twerking. A lot of the parodies do very quickly age just because humor changes. This one does it such a nice, clean, and cut way that...
Here's the thing. I maybe use the wrong term. Maybe it's more of a playoff.
Sure.
Kind of like how Sukiyaki Western Django and Django Unchained aren't going to age as poorly as, say, the remake of Magnificent Seven.
I can totally see what you mean.
Yeah. They're playing off that's the thing. They all play off... The core of it is they all play off a old genre that's been overdone, but they make a fresh take on it, and that's what sets them apart from everything else.
I agree.
Yeah. The movie did receive a 10-minute ovation at its Canadian premiere.
That's impressive.
Which is also all the main trio. That was the first time seeing that movie too, so they were very concerned about how it turned out, which is understandable. None of them have done a Western before.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and yeah, it's interesting. Kim wanted to make a more action-packed than the standard Western, which I don't...
I think he has done that based off of the fact that when they say Western, they are specifically talking about the older ones.
Yeah.
And yeah, the action in those movies was generally about a quarter of the whole movie. This one, it's almost the whole movie.
Well, and do you think this hampered the movie or made it more interesting for a modern audience?
I think it made it more accessible for a modern audience, because a huge problem with getting people into old Westerns is that you have to spend a lot of time listening to old men ramble for like an hour. And it's incredibly crucial for the plot and to know who all these characters are and to understand what our motives are, but it's boring and it's dry. This made it very clear who everyone was and showed off their skills without having to add a lot of that extra dialogue.
Yeah, and I agree with that, because the old ones are the old ones are very heavy exposition. And I think this one, I think what it did is because there was so much action and so much going on, it made the moments where the movie slowed down more important, and you focus on them more rather than actually having to deal with nonstop action, or kind of like how in some of the Jason Bourne movies where it's a lot of action and then there's so much slowdown. The slowdown's always such a small part of the movie, and it kind of leaves like this cliffhanger every time something happens of like there's something else still going. It's a continuous journey. It's never stop. It's never start, stop, start, stop. It's all just steps along the same journey.
And also part of the thing that helped a lot with this movie to differentiate it from a standard action film and make sure that it still held a very Western vibe without going back to that dialogue was that in a lot of action films, the main characters generally spend a lot of time fighting nameless goons. Mm-hmm. Whereas, yeah, we had some nameless goons, but honestly, they weren't the main people fighting.
No.
We had an actual general for the Japanese army who was arguably the most nameless of the goons, and they're in it for a very short amount of time.
Yep.
We spend a lot of time just fighting the three main people against each other. No. And I think that's why the action works so well, is because it all feels like plot action as opposed to just action for action's sake.
Yeah, because the people who are showing up for the action are the side characters, where they're just, that's their purpose in the movie, is to be the lighthearted characters. That way we can focus on these three main characters and also have them stand out against a crowd of
average.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, and it works really well that way.
Yeah, and I think it also comes back to like what you said with the practical effects. There's something about it's still going to stand up.
Oh, definitely.
And I don't know, everything about this movie is so great. The acting's great. The comedy is so subtle and perfect, and just that right amount of awkward bullshit that you don't have to like. It's not like so in your face of like, haha, he said the line, guys. He said the line.
Yes.
Because like they can pay homage to the good, the bad, and the ugly with having the weird dig without saying there are those of us who hold guns and those who dig. You dig?
Yeah.
Badass line, but I'm glad they didn't try and reuse it. It's the same thing with like all the Spider-Man movies, which I recently finally watched the last Tom Holland one.
Oh, yeah.
And I got a little disappointed in it because they said, with great power comes great responsibility. And it's like, that's what was so great about the second movie, and that is that you didn't say that, even though you implied it heavily for like half the movie.
Yeah, and also I think it helps add a level of rewatchability to this movie, because you're not going to have any like line that you're already knowing and pulling from and waiting for. Like, it's long enough that like you'll watch it and then you can watch it again pretty recently and it's still a fresh watch.
Yeah, because I watched this twice for this review, and then I brought one for a refresher, one to take notes, and then I brought it up to my parents' place to watch it. Mm-hmm. My mom loved it.
Yeah, it's a solid movie, and it's not too corny.
No.
Like,
I wouldn't even call it corny in the least. Like, there's
only a handful of scenes really that had any like straight humor. And even those are so quick and subtle that, like, they're not really distracting.
No, not at all. And that's why I said it's always like just the awkward pauses is what's humor. It's like, and I showed my mom while I was there too, my favorite slap in anime is the Jujutsu Kaisen, where he looks up a little bit, and it's that moment of hesitation, and that's what makes it so comedically gold is
the timing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, the timing on this is spot on.
And that's actually that's something good to point out, because the timing of everything is in camera.
Yes.
It's not like when I was listening to the commentary of National Treasure, where the director was arguing with the actor, where the actor's like, oh, see, I just have the best comedic timing. And the director's like, well, isn't that the editing room's job for that?
Yes. Not in this one.
No.
In this one, a lot of the like comedic timing is all in one shot.
Mm-hmm.
Which helps a lot.
Yeah. No, it's... Yeah, this movie definitely holds a special place in cinema. Even if I'm not sure how many people out there really know this movie.
Not yet, but goddamn, it's gonna be my mission to get everyone to watch it now.
Oh, I am too.
This movie's great, and I'm kind of surprised that more people in America don't watch it, because it falls right in line with a lot of what we like, as far as like what an action film, what we look for in action, and what we look for in westerns.
Yeah, and I don't know. I think it will find a niche, because
definitely.
That's the issue, is that I feel for the most part a lot of it's K-dramas. If you talk to anyone about Korean cinema, that's
definitely what's popular now.
Yeah.
But I think especially after Parasite, a lot of people are willing to branch out.
Yeah. Whereas like Parasite was right in line with the Korean films I'd watch, because actually this director's Kim's first movie I saw was A Tale of Two Sisters, which very well done horror flick.
Yeah, I think now that people have branched out from just romance and horror with Korean movies, I do think that this is going to start to see a resurgence in people watching it. I'm hoping that it will get that underground pull, like stuff like Dark Crystal did, where it was popular when it came out for a little bit, and then it waited a while, and now there's this giant following. I can see this movie getting that. Yeah,
no, I completely agree with that, and hopefully we spread the word on it quite a bit.
I'm making everyone I know watch it, so...
I tried. My mom was the only one who stayed up for it.
My family is going to be held hostage in my home this weekend.
Hell yeah. They'll like it.
They will. They definitely will.
Yeah. Or is it... Yeah, your dad's the big Western fan, so...
He will love it. And despite my brother not being a Western fan, this is the sort of action that he likes, and this is right up his humor alley, too. Where it's subtle, it's quick, and it's not spending all of this time focused on, like, the one-punch joke. So I think he'll like it, too.
Yeah.
My mom's the wild card in our family. Sometimes she really likes a Western, and this one's really well done. So we'll see.
Okay. So, on a scale of our good, bad, weird, what do you put this at?
Oh, this is solid good.
Same.
This movie's so good.
I was blinded, and I was hoping it'd be the perfect trifecta, but...
It's really not. There's nothing bad in this movie, other than maybe how long it is, if you have to use the restroom.
Even then, like, I mean, it's only 2 hours and 10 minutes.
And those 2 hours go by so fast. And yeah, there's a couple of weird points, but honestly, not enough to make it a weird movie.
Yeah, no, and that's the thing, because, like, the the character of the weird isn't even that weird. He's just kind of goofy.
And honestly, he's not even...
Quirky's the right term.
He's quirky, but also he's just kind of normal.
Yeah.
Like, that's the weird thing about him, is that he's not weird.
They all are. And I think that's the great thing, is that, like you said, there's something for everyone. And it's one of those movies where you'll attach to someone.
Oh, definitely. I am now obsessed with, like, this fake backstory of the good that we didn't get. And I'm going to spend a lot of time trying to figure out his side of the story now.
Yeah. I am fully in the camp of the weird.
I totally understand. And I'm going to make Crystal watch this, and I can bet $10 that she's going to be in camp bad.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. The bad is just awful. I like the weird because he is an awful person, and you don't find out how awful of a person he is until, like, the very end. It's heavily hinted that he's how bad he really is, because that's the thing. The story's all about them fleeing, but he, of everyone, is the one who left everything. Like, yes. He absolutely left Korea. He cannot go back because he is 100% going to be killed if he goes back to Korea.
And not even like they might not recognize me. No, they will know you.
Yeah, you're a legend.
You're a very wanted man.
Yeah. So since we do have this rating,
Yes.
I know we've said it a lot. Would you recommend this movie, Chris?
Oh my god, yes. So many times.
Hands down.
Oh yeah, and if you've seen it already and you forgot that you watch it again.
Exactly. I that's exactly how I feel, because when I rewatched it, because I remember, I don't know why I thought I didn't like it as much as I did, and then I looked back and I'm like, oh yeah, I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars on Letterboxd. Like, this is a solid movie to watch. And
it
like,
really is.
Just honestly, like, the rewatching of it was really what made it, I think.
I agree. I think it's really fun to watch the first time, but honestly, this is one of those ones that I'm gonna watch it a few more times.
Yeah. I also just wish they had more commentary and more information on it so I could learn more instead of what it is. But
yeah.
At the same time, I think that's the brighter side of it, is that it is like we're not bogged down with everyone, film historians or directors' opinions. It's all just like,
yeah,
hey, I have these couple quick things. I thought it turned out the way I wanted it to.
Well, and we've bitched so much about directors and writers coming back decades after work comes out and be like, no, I planned it the whole time, or I had all this extra stuff I just never put in. I kind of like that, yeah, there is mysteries still left unsolved in it.
Yeah.
It makes it more interesting, and it does mean that, like, even if I can rewatch it hoping for the hints.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah. No, I love this movie, hands down.
Same here. Go watch it immediately.
It holds a special spot. So.
Yeah.
But, yeah. Episode 100.
Woohoo! We did it. It's been a good time.
It has been. I've been looking forward to this for a while. And
me too. We got to watch so many movies that I would never have watched otherwise.
Same here. You picked out a lot, and I still get the next musical.
Yep, and honestly, I like it. We found some genres that I don't think either one of us would have been into otherwise.
Nope. Or both of us like, well, we have to do this because it's classic, and
it turns out there's a reason.
Yeah. Yeah, but we'll see you all next year. I've got a solo rant after this for next week, so keep an eye out for that bullshit.
Yep. Happy holidays.
Yeah, but anyway, this has been The Good, the Bad, and the Weird.
Thanks for listening.
Peace. Happy 2022, and see you next year with episode 101.
All right.
Peace. Thank you for stopping by this here town of The Good, the Bad, and the Weird. We appreciate your listenership, and if you want more of our takes in your life, feel free to check us out on social media at The Good, the Bad, and the Weird Podcast, or TGTBTW for short. As well, if we missed a fact, your favorite part of a movie, or just have a suggestion and want to reach out and say howdy, feel free to email us at tgtbtwpodcast@gmail.com. And feel free to join our Discord at The Good, the Bad, and the Weird Podcast, where we talk about movies, just share random banter here and there. And always, check out our podcasters, streamers, or any other content creator we shout out in our episodes. We really appreciate it. And as always, thank you for listening. Peace.